a minute. We'll get started here in about 1 minute, see if anyone. Hey, welcome to this month's Homelessness and Poverty Work Group meeting. So we have a couple announcements, and then a large portion of this evening's meeting will be dedicated to talking about our Homeless Persons Memorial event that will be happening later this month, and seeing about how folks want to engage in that event. So we'll put together a good game plan for that. I know we have a couple folks that have already been involved in the event planning process, but if we'll go over some materials tonight and see who wants to get involved in different areas of event planning. So let's kick it off by just talking to see who's all here. So I'm going to go to my gallery view. So we got Jackie and Richard. Okay, good to see y'all. So let's start with making sure there's nothing that anyone else wants to put on the agenda for tonight's meeting. We'll have our league updates, and then we'll go into event planning. Are there any other agenda items or materials that y'all would like to cover?
Well, maybe not now, but in the future, there's the possibility of, under this new administration, of internment camps for the homeless. And I don't even know what that entails, nor do I know what happens if you refuse to go. I don't want to think about that. So that's something to keep in mind for the agenda in the near future. I yield.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I think looking at updates in federal policy with the upcoming administration would be probably a really big topic of our meeting in January and February, as we look at some of those different items, and then seeing what the plan is. I've already been kind of monitoring some stuff with HUD and some pieces in the policy space, so totally agree. We'll want to keep our eye on that. So, Anne, I saw you unmuted. Anything you want to add to the agenda for tonight? Okay. Okay. So let's kick off. I've got a couple HRC updates, and just so that y'all have awareness. Probably the most impactful for our work group out of the HRC updates is Cynthia is going to be transitioning to supporting with the We See You work group, and won't always be present at the Homelessness and Poverty work group meetings. But John, who's a new commissioner on the Human Rights Commission, is going to be joining the Homelessness and Poverty work group. So we'll be seeing a couple new faces in here. And if you need to get a hold of Cynthia or need her email, just reach out to me. I'll make sure that you can get in touch with her. She is going to be participating in our memorial event, but just not always present at our Tuesday meetings. And outside of that, the HRC is not going to be having a meeting this month, but we're going to be having an International Human Rights Day event on, I should know the date, I think it's the 14th from 2 to 5 at the library. And I'm going to double check so I make sure I didn't just tell you the wrong date. I believe that's correct.
You got it correct.
Woohoo! Look at you. Yeah, so Jackie and Thomas will likely be moderating a panel with members of the community to talk about topics related to human rights. If you'd like an invitation or information on that event, you can reach out to Melissa or I. We'll make sure that you get forwarded the link. But it'll be held at the library. It was last year we had a panel discussion. It was a really fruitful event with really interesting perspectives on topics. So if you're interested, feel free to come by and participate. There'll be food and good conversation. And Mayor Venus will be there to read the annual Declaration of Human Rights that the city of Eugene puts forward. Outside of that, our only other major event this month will be the memorial service, which will be held on December 21st from 5 to 7 p.m. And we'll be talking a little bit about what volunteering for that event will look like, both in setting up and tearing down. So I know there are a couple folks on this working group that would be interested in engaging with that. So we'll make sure that everyone has a place to fit in to that event and knows where we need volunteer support. Um, so those are major Human Rights Commission updates. Um, Melissa, is there anything from your office that you have an announcement on? Am I missing anything?
Uh, Hi all. So I don't think there's any other updates. I know that we are getting closer to hiring our new human rights and equity analyst, who will be the staff liaison. So stay tuned for that. And I think the only other thing was that, oh geez, sorry, a little bit of a brain fart right there.
You're okay. I
Um,
put you on the spot.
yeah, but I will circle back if I remember what
Okay,
I was going to
okay.
say.
All right. So yeah, that's good. And Commissioner Booker participated in that recruiting panel and said there's some really good applicants in the pipeline. So keep us posted on that timeline, and we will plan accordingly. But Melissa, you've been doing a great job stewarding all of the additional work and energy that you put into the work groups in the HRC. So I appreciate you. Um, So outside of that, we can go into our updates from League. And Richard, if you have any updates on what you all are doing, any key issues or things that you'd like to be on the homelessness and poverty work group's radar, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Uh, League this has been for the last at least two meetings, among other things, looking into where can people go. Period. Um, it's chaos out there. I hear from some of my homeless people out there, and someone lives in a vehicle with an attached RV and can't find a place to park anywhere. Every time she goes somewhere, she is her hounded. Her name is Bernice Pogue, and she was the one that did the interview over a year ago with Legalized Survival. And in the middle of that interview, a police officer harassed her for pretty much the interview. And since then, there's kind of been a vendetta against her. So the police are making her life miserable. But in general, we're trying to figure out where people can go. I'll repeat this until I'm blue in the face. Grant Pass won the Supreme Court ruling. Yes, they did. And if you go near any public property as a homeless person, you're going to get it. However, they did designate, with stipulations, 4 different places that the unhoused can go without getting harassed, cited, swept, or what have you. Yes, there's stipulations. Every few days, you got to move to a new designated space and set up your tent again and so forth. But 4 spaces, and they're looking for more. We do not have one in this whole area, and we're a lot bigger than Grants Pass, and we just don't have one designated space for people to go, but they're being swept and they're all of this and all of that. I attended the city club meeting on homelessness, and among the speakers was the head of HIV Alliance, and she cited how she had one woman that was this close. Let's show you this close to being in housing. She was one step away. She got swept and couldn't be found. So now she has to start that cycle entirely all over again. And among others, I bet you Blake and Blake would know exactly what I'm talking about here. So she said that was heartbreaking and she didn't know how to deal with that, but she did. And in the meantime, we're looking into bathroom access and other things like this. And I did also speak on this topic of where people can go to the main um, PHB all member meeting. And both mayors were there and other celebrities, I guess you could call them. And I brought this up again. There's no place for people to go. And in that respect, um, they have now designated a swampland area for a new sports complex, but they can't designate where people can go. So I have a real problem with this. And it seems like the political will in this city and in this county is not geared toward helping the unhoused anymore. And I don't know where we stand on that. And, with the new administration, would we even be able to continue on? I don't know. Everything's in jeopardy now. And so we're going to go from no place to no designated space to go to internment camps. So that's where I'm at with the league. I would want to know if there were, we're meeting this Friday, once again, if there were league members that wanted to participate in the homeless memorial, would that be acceptable? And I yield.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So thanks for the league updates. And to address that question, if there are folks that want to participate, we can surely talk about meaningful ways to engage. And I don't know if you all have like outreach efforts or things like that. It might also be a good place to put out some materials at the resource fair to ask folks to join league. There might be people that don't know that that's an opportunity that would benefit from knowing. But then there's plenty of ways to volunteer, and I know a couple of league members are going to be with the Raging Grannies. So yeah, just let me know, and if there's anyone interested, we can surely find a way for them to plug in. Yeah, and Richard, I think I wanted to ask you: are there any updates on when the coordinated entry subcommittee is going to be coming back through Lane County? Do they have a start date for the next round of that? And are you participating on this round?
Um, the coordinated entry meetings have not stopped that I know of.
Okay, so there, I saw that they were recruiting membership, so I wasn't
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Okay,
Well, I stepped away. I'm
okay,
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I stepped away from the group because they weren't taking what I was saying seriously. Look,
oh, okay,
our client, this body would not exist. They would not exist. None of these bodies would exist. League would not exist except for our client, which is the unhoused. If we don't grasp a hold of that, then we're doing a disservice. I saw a great post today on Facebook about the homeless, and it says, if you're talking about us, why aren't we involved? So I'll stop there.
okay. Thanks, Richard. Um, okay, so we're looking forward to letting me know if there's any folks that are interested in participating in the memorial event from League. Just keep me posted, shoot me an email, and we'll find a really meaningful way for them to plug in. And if you are interested in setting up something with the outreach fair, just let us know. But I would love to do that. And then Richard, I have you listed as a person to provide a speech on behalf of the league. I know last year you did a really great reading, and so I've got you listed there. So if there's anyone else that's interested, or if you have a delegate for that, just let me know. But appreciate you. Thanks for those updates. Anyone else have any questions for Richard? All right. So we will monitor shifts in the federal political climate and see how that impacts our policy and programming for unhoused populations here in Oregon. There's a lot of observers in that space right now, trying to figure out what that is going to look like. So tabled for January and February, and I think we'll have a better feel of that landscape. So looking into our next item on the agenda, we've got the Memorial Day event planning, which I think really just getting everyone up to speed on the current plan, looking for ways for folks who want to engage meaningfully, and for Commissioner Lowe and I to provide some updates on what we've been working on, and for Melissa to be able to provide any updates on anything that she's been working on. But yeah, outside of that, I'm ready to get that conversation started. So I can open up by going through event details and just showing you a site map. Yep, and it's on the 21st. And we'll go ahead and go into that. So the memorial event, we coordinated with Melissa and some of the organizations that want to get involved with us. And we all determined that our best location this year to meet the needs for warmth and an accessible location and parking and light and all those kind of circulation considerations would be getting the farmers market pavilion and using the pavilion and plaza space. So on December 21st, that's a Saturday, we're planning on having the event from 5 to 7, and we'll have an indoor and outdoor space for the event. And I will go ahead and pull up the event map so we can kind of see how it'll all be set up. And then I'll talk about the runner program. So just give me 1 second. Okay. So you should be able to see my screen. So for folks that were involved last year, you know how I do these kind of event maps, so we have a good idea of where things are supposed to be. So we're going to do our event from basically at 4 p.m. We're going to show up, and it'll be overlapping with the end of the farmers market. So we'll be doing a little bit of cleaning in the space and getting the area prepped. We're going to have access to the kitchen, and we're going to utilize this south end of the building to have our resource fair and food area. The goal being that whenever we get folks who sign up for participating in the resource fair, that we have a really clear place for tabling and some bistro seating in the middle. And then we'll have food brought and put in the kitchen. So folks that are participating in the resource fair will be asked to show up at 4:30 to get their outreach table set up. And then food should be ready to be served right around 5. And then we're hoping for an hour of time for folks to be able to come in, get some food in their bellies, stay warm, and get some resources from outreach providers. Last year, we had folks that handed out written materials on their organizations. We had folks that handed out shelf-stable food items, socks, different resources. But really our goal was to make sure that anyone accessing this space could come and get various resources during the event. And for folks that, eat food at shelter programs or food service programs, that this overlaps with their mealtime, that they're getting a good meal in their belly. And those outreach providers can hand out any materials or supplies. We'll kick off from 5 to 6, having that fair at that time. We're going to try to coordinate with some sheltering organizations on supporting transportation for folks who are residing in shelter programs. And some of our street outreach organizations are going to be doing some coordination with folks who are living in parks and open spaces and the railroad tracks so that they know that the event's happening. And really just trying to support as many folks as we can being able to attend and access the space. So that's the first half of the event. The second half of the event will be the memorial service. So we're currently working with Black Thistle Street Aid to get a installation of farolitos as they did at Monroe Park last year, where we'll have names of folks written and tea lights provided so that there's a really nice memorial. It was really lovely last year for folks that saw what they did at Monroe. It was just a really great event. So being able to bring that into this space and have a little installation in that area, and then the memorial service starting at 6, having musical performance, and then guest speakers, having a main stage area out here, and then seating in the plaza area, and then some standing room behind. And then having that, what I think it would be the east garage door as our main pedestrian access point. So hoping that this is a really good balance for folks to have indoor, outdoor space in a good setting for us to distribute food. And the Rona program should flow really similar as last year. We're reaching out to some guest speakers, and Melissa is coordinating our materials list. So Jackie and Melissa, I don't know if there's anything else that you two would like to add on some of, I know Jackie, you've been working on some of the marketing and promotional materials. Then Melissa, you're working on materials lists and supplies. If there's anything you want to speak to on that, floor is yours. And then Richard, I also see your hand. So after Melissa and Jackie, I'll call on you for questions. Okay.
Okay, so Jackie is unmuted. Go ahead, Jackie. You
I
first.
would say I don't think I have anything else to add. We have all the marketing material available. It'll just be distributing it, I think, at this point and making sure it gets posted on social media.
Okay, and if there's any materials that are ready for me to, do work on, please send my way. And I just wanted to say thank you all for organizing this event and making it very clear for me on what support I need to provide. I guess I have one question, and I apologize, Richard, I know your hand's up as well. What happens if it rains that day? Do we just continue outside? I've never been to this event before, so just curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it has sprinkled in the past, and we still had it on the West Park block, but we've been very lucky to not have any major rain happening. I think if we had something that was unbearable, especially having the farmers market pavilion now, we get creative, and there's potential iterations of how we might use that space in there. So we can make that judgment call a day of, but we've done some alternative planning in the past, and but it's always been outside, and it's not been a major issue. So yeah, I think it's a really very wise and preventative question. So
Thank you for your response.
Yeah. Great. So we have kind of a task list and some areas for folks that might be interested in volunteering. And then we're going to be reaching out to other event planners on how they might want to engage. So yeah, we'll keep you posted, and maybe we'll go through those opportunities after we see Richard's hand. Richard, any questions?
Indeed. One, isn't the pavilion covered? I believe it's covered.
Yeah. Yep. The pavilion's covered.
So if it rains, it rains. And I mean, there is access to outdoor there, sort of, but it's the pavilion itself is covered. So you don't need to necessarily worry if it rains. But one thing about this memorial is it's what on the coldest night of the year, usually, sometimes unbearable. But if you're unhoused, you do that every night. So I think we could sacrifice ourselves for one night, even if it rained. Are we speaking of the cold? Last year we tried and we failed. This year, are we going to try again to get heat lamps or something like that? We kind of need those. It's really hard to, you get your food and then it's cold before you start eating it, and more things like that. It was really cold last year. So I yield.
Yeah. So I know last year we reached out to, I think you had recommended reaching out to Sessions and it didn't work out. They didn't have anything. Part of the indoor outdoors, we were hoping that the inside would be warm as a good place to eat, and it's having seating inside so we can warm up. We could definitely see if there's any heat lamps or anything like that available, and maybe Melissa, we can put that on our uh, list and see maybe if that's something that we could put up like out in the seating area if we can find anything like that, and just see what resources the city has. And you're thinking like the tall propane heat lamps, right, Richard?
Yeah, just the lamp heaters or whatever they use, usually for outside heating at the bars and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the
Let's
that,
We can put it on the
that
materials
thing.
list.
Yeah, I'll
And
go
Yeah,
ahead and add that. Oh,
okay,
sorry.
great. Yeah,
um,
let's see if we can find something, Richard.
I don't want to put her in the spotlight, but Sarah Koski, you're probably familiar with, and is very inventive and creative. So she might be somebody to reach out to on this level as well to see if there's a possibility either through LTD or otherwise. I'm not putting her on the spot, but I'm just saying you probably guys know who she is and so forth through LTD. So
Yeah. Well, I know Sarah used to be involved with the work group here, and she's not anymore. But I definitely expect her to be present. So she's got my number. So I think that she's been doing quite a bit right now with the art house, and some of the work with LTD. But I would like LTD to table. So maybe see if she would be interested in coming. And I know if it's cold, they might be able to do free rides, and which is something that Sarah I know is really interested in. So
okay.
we could see if maybe LTD would provide free rides to the downtown area, similar to like what they do at Egan. I think it'd be a really good idea. So yeah, if you got any other ideas on how LTD could engage, I think that's a good idea.
Are you guys gonna reach out to Sarah or should I?
Mhm. I can shoot a message. That's no problem.
All right, excellent, excellent.
Yeah, good call, Richard. Um, cool. Anything else on kind of event plan? Everyone here has participated in helping orchestrate this event in the past. Does it feel like it makes sense to everyone? Okay, I take silence as a yes. Um, if we there's two elements that I want to put on our radar. Is last year Jackie and I did a pretty significant amount of we did street outreach in the downtown area, just letting everyone know what's going on. So if anyone has any interest in doing that, or even if it's just around your neighborhood, letting folks know, shoot me an email. I'll probably do some street outreach the week prior to it, just giving everyone flyers and updates, so that folks that live downtown know what's going on and know that it's an accessible space. Um, yeah, and last year I know we had a lot of folks that down by the fountain, and that came by and grabbed food, and we were able to give out some good grub to folks. So if there's anyone interested in doing that, let us know. Richard, I saw you unmuted.
Yeah, you also have KPW to back you up. John and I can get out the word
Great.
via our different resources there for KPW weekly news and news days.
Yeah. So Richard, would it be best to do a blurb For you, like a written blurb that you can read, interview. What would be best for you for getting the word out?
If you want to write up a blurb for me, just you got my email, send it to me, and I can do just that, or I can just ad lib.
Okay, cool. I'll send. How about I send you a blurb and then you can ad lib off of it? I think that'd be great.
Okay, excellent. There you go.
That's perfect. Okay, so I'll get that sent over to you, and Jackie and I have coordinated on some of that.
And John Q as well.
Great. Okay, I'll email both of you, and then
Okay,
we'll
you
make
got John.
sure.
You got John's email.
I believe I do. Yes.
Okay.
So even if I don't, I'll let you know.
You want to put that in the Q&A for him, John? Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so we'll send over a blurb. That way you can do a posting, and then reach out to KEZI, Register Guard, Eugene Weekly. All those folks usually cover the event. And I think we were successful at getting a PSA on NPR last year too. So maybe we can do the same. And then one of the big elements that we've run into has always been getting names. So I will send out a form to you all. As you know, whenever Dre and I did some work trying to recover names, and we have challenges getting names because of I think it's a state level policy on our ability to access records associated. I think it was categorically, it was we had to look for people that had a they were called like a transient status at the state level, and then they wouldn't release the full names to us, and we're running into those same, that policy hasn't changed. So what we have to do for anyone who's passed is we really just have to gather those names. And so I have a form, same submission form we used last year, for us to write down names and make sure that they get on the list to be read. So I will send that out to everyone. And I'm going to be sharing it with sheltering and outreach organizations as well, so that we do make sure that we gather and honor as many names as possible. So if any of you all have folks in your life that have passed this year, I'll make sure that you have that form so we can have their name read. So just know that that's something that's available. And when we do street outreach, we'll gather names. Last year, we were pretty successful at talking to folks about folks that had passed, and them getting that space to share their name with us. So we'll go through a similar thing, and then I'll reach out to the Eugene Weekly to see if they have any names that they'd like to submit. That's a pretty big effort that Dan puts on every year. So yeah, those are probably the big like pre-event planning pieces. If anyone's involved in organizations that would like to do resource distribution or participate in the resource fair, make sure that you have the participant sign up form so that we have a list of their point of contact and they get all the information on where to show up and when. And you'll get forwarded that via email after this meeting, and feel free to just forward that out to anyone that you think should participate or be aware. And if anyone knows of folks that are interested in handing out resources like socks and hand warmers and shelf stable, I know last year the Way Home made a really big contribution to the event. So if you know anyone like that that would be interested, just let me know so they can get involved. Richard, I see unmuted.
Yeah, I can try and I don't know how successful it would be, but I do know a lot of unhoused people on social media. I can try and reach out and see if anyone can give us names for the list.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we'll see how that works or doesn't work. And also, did I hear you correctly? We are combining forces with the folks that did the Monroe Park thing last year.
Yeah. So they've reached out and wanted to consolidate the event. So we have one larger event and can pool resources and planning. So, yep, we're going to have the same event organizers that were there are going to be involved. And, and I don't know if anyone else in the community, if there's anyone else that's planning events, but for the event organizers that were involved there last year, they're coordinating with us. So that'll be really nice. Hopefully it's a really good space. And they had a really lovely event at Monroe Park last year too. So I think it'll be a really nice space to hold with everyone. Oh, yeah. So looking at some of the logistical pieces, I think probably from our work group, is there anyone on our work group that has like a particular interest, like, hey, I know this is what I want to help volunteer with? I know, Richard, you're involved in doing the marketing and promotion. And last year you did food and tabling. Is that still something that you're interested in doing this year?
Just so you know, she doesn't have a microphone and she's putting
Oh, okay.
chats in the chat. And she
Okay.
said she could help with food.
Okay. Switch computers. And you said that she said she could help with food? Yes? Okay, sweet. So Melissa will be coordinating our order for food, and then so just if you have your active food handler certificate, just send that to me so we have it printed there. And Melissa has hers too, so we should be good in the food distribution. And if there's anything pertinent, I'll make sure that you get included in those food related emails. But we should have a good combination of like meal food and then some shelf stable stuff. And then Melissa, so Cynthia has expressed interest in helping table the HRC table. So we've got Cynthia involved in that to help with tabling, and we can put that up kind of near the food area so that people know who to touch base with. It might be a good idea. So that'll be great.
Sounds good. We'll do.
And then Jolene had expressed interest, I believe, in helping set up, and them their kiddos helped set up last year, which was really great. So at the beginning, we'll want to set up tables and chairs and things like that. So I know that I'll be showing up at around 4 p.m. to get things going. Jackie will be, I think, showing up around 4 as well. And so anyone that can show up early to help clean after the farmers market and then get stuff set up will be much appreciated. And then we will need some folks to kind of hang out and help tear down the event and put things away so we don't leave anything as a mess. So putting tables and chairs away will be our biggest cleanup part. And we'll probably have we'll have volunteers from multiple, organizations, and usually members of the public help with that cleanup process too. So, but if there's anyone that's interested in helping with that, just shoot me an email. And the resource fair will start at 5, and then the memorial service will start at 6. Just to answer your question, Richard. But yeah, so that's really the big pieces. So we'll be sending out a bunch of emails and getting folks involved. So that's really all I have. I don't know if there's anything I'm missing, Jackie, Melissa, or if there's anything that I haven't considered. But I'm hoping we're pretty set up. We got a little practice at this. Richard, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I just was going to share a memory. Last year, there was somebody sitting afar off that was unhoused by a tree, and he was kind of ranting at the people that were going by in the cars and so forth and so on, and ranting at people in general. And I came by and cautiously handed him some food.
Yeah.
And, all of a sudden he turned to me and he was so nice. He was just like, "Oh, I am so sorry. I don't mean to do this. I shouldn't be disturbing you all. I'm sorry." And
Mhm.
I thought that was just great. So yeah, and I was, someday, maybe not this memorial because it's coming right around the corner, but someday this is happening all over the country. Someday
Mhm.
maybe we can coordinate with everybody around the country via Zoom so we can have a little interface. Just a thought.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that memory because I think that gets at the core of like making, really like what we're doing here and making sure that this is a really inclusive space and, like exactly what you said of just, making sure that everyone is, afforded the space to participate and to, have a meal and know that they're welcome. And that was last year part of our movement from West Block to East Block was making sure that we didn't disrupt anyone that was residing on East Block because there were quite a few people that were established in the main stage area. And so I'm hoping that actually by doing it in the farmers market pavilion area that it isn't disruptive to folks that reside down there, and that we can make sure that they feel welcome and included in that space and can come over and grab a meal. Because I know a lot of folks that are living right in that area and spend a lot of time down there in the evenings. So the more we can do to make sure that they can grab a meal and warm up, I think it's really important. Um, and what you were saying about that kind of national coordination, and something that you might not have known from last year is we did actually. There's a registry for memorial events across the country, and we did actually register our event with all the other memorial events across the country, so that folks were made aware. So I can't remember the name of the registry, or else I'll try to find it and email it to you, Richard. But yeah, there's a lot of organizations and communities that have events similar to this. And I think there's a huge, like, there's probably a huge opportunity to connect with other communities and share that space because it's a really, really powerful and meaningful event. And yeah, knowing, I think that solidarity across the nation, knowing this is a national crisis that we're experiencing locally, but we're really talking about a large scale humanitarian crisis that a lot of communities are going through. So yeah,
Yeah, I
but
got homeless. I got homeless in Concord, Massachusetts, on my Facebook page, and they're doing the same thing. They're planning for the homeless memorial as well. So it just occurred to me thinking about that there's Massachusetts doing it, and we're doing it, and not probably all over the country doing it. So sometimes I just like to have everybody just kind of do a check in, maybe through Zoom, one of these days, one of these years. So just a
that's a
thought.
great idea. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Richard. Yeah, and I appreciated last year when you spoke, bringing in that national perspective. I thought what you read and kind of tying into that national narrative was really meaningful. So I like it, Richard. See what we can do.
If we have time, I can try out my new speech on y'all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have one prepared for this year already?
Well, I think so, but it's a little rough and a little long, so I'm trying to shorten it as we go along. But yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah.
Let
Are
me
you looking to read through it this evening?
I can give it a shot here. Let me see. Where is it? Oh, it's in there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're here for it.
Download. There we go. I hope this works. Just once. Open says me. Okay, here we go. All right. So on this cold night, one of the coldest, darkest nights of the year, we stand in solidarity with our unhoused neighbors. And sometimes, especially in these times, things can look absolutely void of hope. So, this is a story of hope. In mid November 1873, an ocean liner, the Val d'Har, set sail from New York with 313 passengers on board. Um, in a few days, they'd make landfall in Europe just weeks before Christmas in Paris. Anna Spofford and her 4 little girls were among the happy passengers. They had come from Chicago, and their father, Horatio, who intended to sail with them, but was detained on business, but he said not to worry. He would book his passage in a few days, and then he would be reunited in the City of Light, celebrating the season of joy. And joy was what they needed. 2 years earlier, the Great Chicago Fire had all but destroyed Horatio's business. This journey was intended to restore hope and bring healing into the Spoffords' lives, which is why on the ship on the evening of the November 22nd, Anna and her girls knelt down and said a prayer for peace and dreamed of the Yuletide festivities to come. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, they were jolted awake in their berths. Despite the starry, clear sky, the Valdahar inexplicably collided with the Loch Earn, a Scottish iron-hulled clipper. Lifeboats quickly filled with people. Many passengers leapt into the icy waters. Anna tried desperately to keep her children together, but the 2 eldest became separated in the confusion. Just 12 minutes after the impact, a giant wave washed over the deck, and Anna was drawn underwater with her youngest daughters. She held on to 5-year-old Bessie with all her strength until it gave out. And then her last memory was of 2-year-old Tanetta in her delicate lace nightgown, torn from her grasp, getting smaller and smaller, until she, too, finally disappeared. Later, the crew of the Loch Earn found Anna unconscious, floating on a wooden plank. When the ship docked in Wales, she sent a telegram to her husband that began with, "Saved alone. What shall I do?" Horatio immediately sailed from New York. There was just one thing in these days that has become magnificently clear. He wrote to a friend, "I must not lose faith." 4 days into the voyage, on a Thursday evening, the captain of the ship summoned Horatio to the foredeck. By the crew's calculations, they were nearing the place where the ship had gone down, taking with them the bodies of the 4 daughters, now resting under 3 miles below. But Horatio refused to look down. He did not think of the dear ones there, he later recounted. Instead, he gazed out across the rolling waves and up into the moonlit sky, and there he began to formulate a simple expression of his faith, a verse that would become a beloved hymn. When peace, like a river, attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Only a few weeks earlier, in the same place on the open sea, Anna experienced a similar awakening. After her rescue, she regained consciousness. She was overcome with despair and wanted to throw herself back into the ocean. What was life worth without her children? But then, as if she heard a voice in her mind and her heart, it said, "You are spared for a purpose. You have work to do." They returned to Chicago and then and Anna gave birth to a boy and a girl, but sorrow upon sorrow, Horatio Jr. succumbed to scarlet fever, and in the end, only 2 of their 7 children survived to maturity. They moved their family to Jerusalem and established what they called the American colony, not far from the little town of Bethlehem. We celebrate at Christmas. Although they were deeply religious, their purpose was not to preach or proselytize, but to serve people of all backgrounds, relieving the effects of poverty, disease, and strife wherever they were found. 7 years later, Horatio died. Everyone still there?
Yeah.
I am. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Just wanted to make sure because it disappeared on me. So hold on. I got to find where I left off. Uh, Open back up. And there we go. Okay. Hold on. All right. So 7 years later, Horatio died. And once again, Anna had reason to give up, but she didn't. She found the strength to move forward and to turn outward to continue what she and her husband had begun. And the seed of service they planted in others bore sweet fruit. In time, Bertha, their daughter, continued the humanitarian work, and she ended up founding the Spofford Family Hospital for Children, which resides to this day and bears their name. For 150 years, millions have sung and been lifted by Horatio's hymn, "It is well with my soul." Most have been unaware of the circumstances in which it was written, but they have been strengthened by its universal message. Horatio's words resound with the one truth we celebrate at Christmas. The child was born in Bethlehem, bringing peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Because, because of him, the human spirit can rise above every tragedy, whenever and however we suffer our own night of sorrow. His love does shine in the darkness. His peace can heal the wounded soul. And the Christmas work of giving, loving, serving, and rescuing is ours if we choose to make it so. And as we do, we join with the saints and angels to rejoice and sing, "It is well, it is well with my soul." And there you have it. Any comments, questions, disparaging comments?
I thought it was lovely, Richard. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, that is from a PBS special with I always get his name wrong, but see if I can look it up while we're doing this. I always want to call him Hugh Jackman, and it's not that. Oh, come on. Oh, oh, hold on. Uh, Hugh Bonneville was the man that narrated that, and you can find that on YouTube by going to look, and he does a much better rendition of.
Well, I appreciate you sharing, Richard. Oh, I think we lost Richard. I'm sure he'll re-enter. Okay. Well, we'll hold some space for Richard to re-enter. I really appreciated him sharing that. I'm really excited for him to speak at the event. We'll give him just a minute to jump back on. Hey, Richard, welcome back. Floor's still yours.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So yeah, that's what I have. Is it too long?
No, I don't think so. I think that's totally an appropriate length, and it was a really moving read. So
Yeah, and again, it's not to proselytize or preach, just as the Spoffords were not inclined to. They opened their children's hospital to all of all ethnicities and all religions and all peoples. So, and that's true of all their work. They weren't imposing their religion on anybody, and I don't intend to do any of that while I'm reading this. I hope that didn't come across as too churchy.
no, I think it's totally appropriate. However you want to represent yourself in that space, and I feel like the narrative was comfortable and really calming. Um, yeah, I'm excited to hear you speak, Richard, and I appreciate you sharing that. I felt things while you were reading that, especially thinking about it in the context of this event, and I think it's really that's one of the things about this being a memorial service is it really is it's a really moving event, and so having that time to listen and hear the narrative, I think is great. So yeah.
Now, if the Radiant Grannies knew the hymn and could be singing it in the background, that'd be nice. But otherwise, yeah.
Well,
Well,
they'll set the mood, that's for sure.
yeah, it would. It's a wonderful hymn, but and a lot of people know it. But
Yeah.
it's in the context what it was written. It just stuns me that as they got there and the crew brought him forward to the foredeck there and said, "This is where tragedy happened," he wouldn't look down.
Yeah.
Instead, he started writing, and that was amazing. And it was just like, it was very clear he cannot give up the faith. And I think that hopefully will touch people, especially the unhoused that are with us and the housed as well. So, any other thoughts on that? Any other suggestions? Any commentary?
You got a couple chats and saying it was lovely and a big heart, and thank you, Richard, for sharing from Melissa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, thank you,
Well,
Richard.
yeah, I was just watching that the other day, and it occurred to me that that's the one I'm going to use. So I didn't want to do Mr. Olivet, who is the homeless coordinator of the homeless national group there. So I was just going to go with that this year because Mr. Olivet is very eloquent in his writings, and so just wasn't feeling right about borrowing from him again. So
I think it'll be great. So we'll make sure to give you enough time on the event program so you can read through, and I'm excited for it.
okay, well, yeah, like I said, I tried to make it a little. There's a lot more to it, but I kind of shortened it from suggestions from others. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Richard. So,
all right.
yeah. Well, thank you. Um, yeah, and I think that's just a taste of the really lovely evening that this memorial service is. Um, so,
If there's
well,
nothing else, I do have a wonderful story to relate.
okay. Well, what I was going to ask is for the group if there's anything else about the memorial event that we need to touch base on. Um, and then if there's not, I think, Richard, if you have something that you'd like to share, and then us coordinating and following up on any event planning via email, I think would be totally appropriate.
Yeah, send me and John that blurb. Don't forget.
I won't. I got it written down. Um, Jackie and Melissa, is there anything else regarding the event that you'd like to share before we shift in to our last piece for tonight's meeting?
I don't have anything.
Me either.
Okay. Well, Richard, if you want to close us out with a positive story, I like when you do that. And then we'll relay all our administrative tasks via email and plan accordingly for the month to come.
All right. Well, a Florida woman said she was fired from her job at IHOP after she served food to a homeless man. Victoria Hughes, who has worked in the IHOP in Lakeland, Florida for 13 years, said the man walked into the restaurant and said he was hungry. Without a second thought, I brought him a stack of pancakes and a water. She also informed her manager, but his reaction caught her off guard. He told me the reason behind him being upset was because it could cause a loitering issue or a safety issue for customers. She said the same homeless man later returned with a family who brought him in for another meal. And on Tuesday, she received a phone call from her manager telling her she had been let go. And I asked him what for what, and he said company policy. Despite losing her job before the holidays, Hughes said she stands by her decision. I need my job, but I'd still do it again. I truly would. I'd help somebody if I could. If he asked for my shirt, I probably had tried to give him that too. Excuse me. After speaking with the local union, she got a direct call from IHOP's corporate office. The call included a job offer and compensation for the days of work she missed. We are committed, said the IHOP CEO. We are committed to providing an inclusive environment. Welcome to everyone. And we actively investigated this situation, and we will utilize this as an opportunity to train our employees on how to approach instances surrounding food insecurity. And that's from Dan Enea, CEO of Sunshine Restaurant Partners, which operates more than 150 IHOP locations. To continue our commitment to supporting those in need in our local commitment, we are making a donation to Feeding America, as well as the local Lakeland charities that support food insecurity. Hughes is taking the time off to decide whether to work for IHOP again after spending time with her family this holiday.
Thanks for that story, Richard. That's a good note to end on.
Indeed.
Well, thank you. Well, I think with that, we can call our meeting to adjourn, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to share. And be prepared in monitoring your emails throughout the month for information regarding our upcoming event. And be thinking about what are going to be some of those high priority topics for discussion in January and February, especially looking at some of the shifts in our national political ecosystem, and some of the local shifts, seeing how different shifts in local leadership might influence what policy recommendations we can make or put through. So, Richard, I see your hand, and then I think we'll call for adjourn.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that League is meeting or supposed to have met in January on the 3rd of January, and we're going to postpone that a week. I see that we're probably meeting on the 7th of January. Does that still stand, or are we going to postpone that because of the holiday as well? I yield.
I don't know. What is that, a Tuesday? I don't know if we are planning to postpone or not. But we can certainly determine that and send out an email. But right now, I think we're meeting on the 7th, unless there's any sort of conflict for everyone. But if we do postpone it, we'll just push it to the following Tuesday. So whatever works for you all.
Excellent.
Okay, great. So if you have any scheduling conflicts that come up that first week of January, just send us a note. Okay, y'all. Well, thanks for a great meeting. I look forward to the event, and we'll send out some emails with information. If you got any questions or follow-up, just shoot Jackie and I an email so we can coordinate with Melissa. And she and I are doing a ton of work on the event planning and had a really good session on Sunday. So appreciate you, Jackie, and all the work you're putting in to helping pull this off. And Melissa, you're much appreciated. So thanks to our co-planners, and we're gonna pull it off. It's gonna be a good service.
Don't forget to reach out to Sarah, since you said you would, and LTD.
Yeah, will do. So
okay.
All right, appreciate y'all. So good to see
Good
you.
night.
Take care.
One.
Take care.
Bye.
Stay warm.
Sweetly. Bye. John Q, great to see you.